Hello, everybody. Welcome, and thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to be here with us. I'm just going to jump right in, and we're going to get started here. I really want to just also say thank you to Emmy and Marcy for being here and helping us be a part of this. So I'm just going to jump right in and start sharing my screen here. This is your district financial team. Consists of myself, my financial secretary, Linda Morgan, our financial reviewer, Stephanie Dickinson, and our tax and government filings consultant, Lisa Uematsu. This is going to be our agenda for this evening. We're going to be going over all of these items here, and we'll be going straight from there. Your role of being a PTA treasurer, you are an elected member of your board. You are the most senior manager of PTA funds, and you're the chair of the budget committee. So what that means is you get to call that meeting, and or hopefully you did this summer. You do that call during the summertime. You meet and you get all of your budgets taken care of. You're looking at your incomes and expenses and your programs and all of the events that you want to do, and kind of come up with a plan to get things going. This is what you do with the election. I know we're kind of going to be jumping into election season soon, so hopefully you did some of this at the beginning, but it's also something to look forward to for this next school year. As a group, you're going to be meeting, you're going to be looking at those school needs, kind of keeping that eye on that 3-to-1 rule, which is 3 programs for 1 fundraiser. That's kind of a little stepping stone that is referred by CAPTA. You're going to want to attend all the training that you can. Are you still there? I clicked on something. There we go. You're going to want to attend all the trainings you can. So if your council holds trainings, you're going to want to go to those. If district, like we're doing tonight, you want to attend things that are offered. We've also got the convention coming up soon, California State PTA Convention, and they offer a multitude of trainings there as well. You're also going to look at your financial reports and get things going. You're going to want to take a look at what they did last year. What was the budget to actual for last year? Did they fall short on some of the fundraisers, or did you not spend so much? And you kind of tweak things through. So those are just some of the things to kind of start taking a look before things get going. We transition with the outgoing treasurer and go into the new one. We're going to go through all of the accounting systems. Do you use My PTEZ? That's something that district uses. It's an accounting software, and what's great is it prints up all the types of reports that we utilize for our meetings, that when we present at our executive board meetings and our association meetings. You want to make sure you understand those reports and talk to the outgoing treasurer if you don't. And this is going to be also moving forward. If you're not going to be treasurer next year, you want to get these things prepared as you're going through the year, so that way the new treasurer can take that on as well. Supplies, are there checks? Do we have the right type of pen to be writing on our check? We want to make sure it's not erasable or a ballpoint pen that can be washed. We had an instance like that for us this summer where they got a hold of our mail, and we had mail that was stolen, and some checks got taken care of. And so that was a fun little thing to go. Account logins and passwords. So when I took on this role, I was given a list of all of the accounts and the passwords and everything that we needed to be able to move forward. And it was such a smooth transition, which is great. The annual financial report and the tax returns, have those been filed? Have those been recorded and copies sent where they need to go? This is something that we do every single year. The way I kind of like to look at it is we are running we're running a small business. We have to file tax returns every year. Did you guys get that all completed in November? November 15th is when we have to get them completed for the year. If your unit fails to file taxes 3 years in a row, then you do run the risk of being closed down. So there's a lot of different things that kind of put into play there to keep track of on a calendar. your bank accounts and signature authority updates. Who are the approved signers? Does anyone know where you find that information? Those are going to be in your bylaws. So for who the approved signers are, you're going to make sure you have election minutes from your secretary, and then you guys are going to meet up in the summertime when this comes up this next year, and go get the signatures changed on the bank accounts. You want to make sure that any old signers are no longer on there as well. You want to make sure nobody has access to those accounts who shouldn't have access to them. And then you want to make sure this is taken care of for every single account that you have that is in the PTA name. Monthly bank reconciliations. We're kind of living in this digital age, but in PTA, we do some of these kind of traditional old school things. You do need to be getting your statements printed or getting them mailed to your school office. And then someone who's not a check signer should be opening that envelope. So as a treasurer, you're not the one who's opening the bank statement envelope. The only other caveat with that be is where it says or printed, as if you don't get those. Like if you're banking with an institution that charges for that, that's something that you would need to decide if that's worth it to get the print or to have it emailed to you. And then someone else needs to take a look at it by a non-check signer on your board. You need to reconcile it as soon as you can. End of the month, like for us at district, we don't get our checks, we don't get our bank statement until probably around the 20th of the month for the previous month. But I go through and kind of print up a little trial balance one at the end of usually within the first week of the next month. So, and that way I can really look to make sure everything has been taken care of. There isn't any strange charge, and that any checks I wrote were actually reconciled and paid out for the exact amount that I wrote it for and to the right person. Doing this also helps you find if there's something that shouldn't be happening. You're wanting to make sure that that bank reconciliation is reviewed and signed by a non-check signer as well. That could be your financial reviewer or somebody else on your elected on your board. Very important. It's that transparency that we need to make sure we're maintaining. I don't know if anyone's ever looked for a letter of determination. You guys can read through this. It is issued by CAPTA, California State PTA. The email to receive a letter of determination for your unit is right there, lod@capta.org. To receive that from them, you do need to have and be in good standing with all of the governmental agencies, which means you filed your taxes, both federal and state. You have completed your RRF1. You are doing all this. Sometimes when you're looking, as it says on that third bullet point, some companies might ask for that letter of determination, like if you're getting a grant or some kind of an in-kind donation, they might make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Every year it can be reissued, and I know I get copied in when any of our units ask for this from California State PTA. I get CC'd on it, so it's always fun to kind of see who's looking and getting those taken care of, but it's all good. Next slide is organizing your treasurer's records. So hopefully when you took over, you were given a procedure book or some instructions. You got a chance to look at that previous 6 months worth of what's been happening, what's going on, how the previous treasurer took it. This is a good little way to look through to see what you need. One thing I like to use is I'll actually pull up the financial review checklist to see what is the financial reviewer going to be looking for, which is all of these things to kind of how I organize my book. I keep a lot of things toward the front, like my bylaws and our standing rules. I also keep in there my listing of my board and all the contact information. I've got our budget to actual from the last fiscal year. Excuse me. I've got copies of our previously filed taxes in there. And then, of course, all of your monthly things, your ins and your outs, all of the deposits coming in, all of the authorizations for payments, those accompanied with receipts. It's all good. You can make a treasurer calendar. So on all meetings that are a part of your board, so every month you are having a board meeting, that would be your executive board. That's everyone who's been elected in and usually chairpersons. And then you have your association meeting, and that's going to look a little different for every unit. Some units that are really busy might have every single month, might have association meetings. I know when I was at an elementary school, we did every single month there was an association meeting, because you're doing so much usually at elementary level. Middle school, we did them every 2 months. It wasn't every other month. So when you're looking at that, depending on how your schedule is and how your calendar is you have to backtrack, right? So if you've got something coming up in March, but your first meeting of the school year is not until March, you would need to get things approved at the previous meeting before, if that makes sense. I hope so. Events that have income and or expenses, you've got to make sure that the executive board approves all of this. So things need to be presented there. And then you're going to want to bring it to the association as well and make sure things are getting approved and funds are getting released prior to that payout of when things are going to be happening. Every single month that you collect membership, you need to forward those memberships through channels. We all know, and it specifies what your unit's membership dues are, and it's going to look a little different for every unit. Typically, it's pretty much the same, but it could be a little different. You've got your portion that you keep for yourself. You also have the rest of it that does go up for your council, for the district, for state, and for national. There's a lot of different components with that. If you're on Totem, everything is split out, which is wonderful. It makes things a lot easier. And then if you're taking cash, if you're taking checks, if you're signing up people at the back to school lunch, or if you're signing up things at your spring festival that's going to be coming up and you're getting membership, at the end of the month, as a treasurer, you should be looking at all of those memberships that came in and getting that money ready to be sent up through channels. That entire membership amount it doesn't belong to it's not a fundraiser, it's their membership that they go through. And getting that stuff sent up is very, very important. You want to also make sure you're reconciling your bank accounts with your statements. So looking at all your paperwork, looking at what you went through, making sure everything matches, and then finding it if you don't. Okay. Tax filings 4 months and 15 days after the end of the fiscal year, which for all of us is November 15th, is when taxes were due for the last school year. I'm not sure if all of you have done this, but insurance premiums were actually due by January 4th this year. They assessed a $50 late fee if you did not get that completed prior to that time. That also means that you are not insured if you have not completed your insurance premium to AIM. When we're done here, I'm going to show you some of the links and how easy it is to kind of get in there for some of this. Workers' comp is happening right now. We have a few days left to get that completed. The workers' compensation annual report is due by January 31st to AIM. It's the same platform on the California State PTA website that you go to do that. I'm going to actually go to a different screen share really quickly here. And I want to show you this information. So right on the California State PTA website, there is, you want to go into here into PTA leaders, and there's some good things you want to bookmark here. Down to run your PTA, and then straight down to insurance. You can all see that path there. And when you click on that, this is where you can kind of read through the information, how to get through there. There's the insurance guide is right here. We also, if we scroll down, this is the insurance payment, premium payment process. You can pay the insurance right there. And then right now, this is where we're in here. So there is a little video to show you how to do it. There's also in English and Spanish, all of these things, how you can go, but it's late. You get to do it right there. So you click on here. You're going to type in your name and figure out what your unit is. You can just type it right in there and pull it up and then just start going from there. When I did it for the district, oop, I'm out of here. I'm going to stop share because I can't remember how to get back in. Hang on. All right. When I did it for our district and got our district workers' comps taken care of, I'm going to actually just, mistakes happen. I forgot to include one of the people that we paid. So I had originally done it for just one person and submitted. And as soon as you submit within just a few moments as a treasurer, it sends it right back with the bill on how to pay it. And so that way we could get the bill taken care of. But then I had to go back and do an amendment to add that other person in that I just completely forgot about. And so they never sent me a new bill. And so I contacted them. I sent them a quick email. By the next day, I had my new payment ready to go. And then I brought that to our board on Monday and got that approved and got everything paid and taken care of. So it's really easy. They're very, very communicative. So if you have a question, they will email you right back. AIM has been really, really wonderful. We've got our budget committee. Budget committee is the president will appoint all of that. You are the chair of that budget committee, which actually reminds me, we need to look at our budget committee on our district side of things. We've got to go through there. A lot of times you'll kind of stick with the same budget you had year to year. If programs change, you kind of manipulate little things through that. The budget committee can meet throughout the year. Couple times I know for myself at district, because we don't have a ton of events like we would if we were at a particular unit. We try and meet at least once a semester, essentially, just to do check-in. Do we need to modify something, or we're going to be doing that up at now as we look back to the last 6 months fiscally to see if we need to do some adjustments, because our budgets, as we hopefully know, and if not, we're going to know now, our budgets are a living document. They can be changed as needed. To do that change, though, you're going to mark up what you want to change. You're going to bring it to the board. The board's going to, give you input if needed. You vote on it in your board meeting, and then you bring that to the association to ratify and to plan that new budget and to get that new budget going, which is really nice that if things need to change, you have that ability to change. For this next school year, looking forward as you're going through and you review what happens for the year, you will have a proposed budget that needs to be presented prior to the end of the summertime. You want to get that at your last association meeting of your year. You want to make sure you're releasing funds for summertime. Is there things that are going to be taking place, because that's transition is that July 1 transition, right? Things that happen in the summer before school starts and before your next association meeting, you need to make sure you're releasing those funds. So getting things, reimbursed. Is there a kindergarten back to school barbecue? Are you doing something for the teachers for the first day of school, or their teacher day one is usually that day before? looking through that and making sure you have funds to be able to cover those summertime things before your next fundraisers in the next school year. And approvals can be done by the new association um, as we get started. I'm going to take a little drink here. All right, what goes into your budget? So you've got carryover funds. So that's going to be whatever is left in your bank account and left in the budget from the previous fiscal year. That's kind of your starting place. Your income. So you're going to have, I know it's kind of really small, but hopefully you kind of get a little idea of what it is there. Administration income, or, do you have things that, you're going to be getting receipts for? I'm even having a hard time seeing this. I'm sorry. Programs and fundraising. So do you do one big fundraiser a year? Do you have maybe 2 or 3 a semester that go through, or for the first half or for the second half? One big one in the fall or one big one in the spring, and then how many programs are you going through with all of that? Funds not belonging to the unit income, that's going to be that membership, right? So we say shoot for our goal of 200 members for the next school year is our goal. And so you'll break that down. How much of your $10 membership is goes up to national, how much goes to state, how much goes to district and council, and then how much do you retain at your unit? Those are all separated out. You've also got expenses, right? Your administrating operating expenses. How much is that program going to cost? How much is your fundraiser going to cost? How much do we want to have to carry over next year to be able to get the units, get started for the next school year? Do you have any unallocated funds? And then also funds not belonging to the unit. Again, that's your membership. So that's those expenses. So when you take them in, you're going to be writing those checks straight back out to be able to cover all of that. Council, district, state, and national PTA membership dues are considered funds not belonging to the unit and do not need membership approval to be forwarded. So you don't need to ask permission. You're going to ratify it at your meetings, but at the end of the month or the very first week of the month, you write that check to your council to move forward, so that way the membership can get moved on up. Because once council gets it, they make their accounting, they keep their portion, and then they are to send up all of that membership to district. When district receives it, we take, again, we keep our tiny portion. I think we collect, what is it, 50 cents for every membership to help run, for our dues. And then just today, actually, I forwarded up to California State PTA, the California State portion and the national portion for our entire district. So that for us, it's that last week of the month, we have to get everything up. And so we do ask that you're sending that in toward the beginning of the month. So that way it hits through all of those processes to get to us so we can move it forward for you. Through channels. You might hear some of these little PTA terms, and that's one of them, through channels. That is the root of formal communications through the PTA. So I believe a lot of you, most all of you are the units in a council. You are part of the Norwalk-La Mirada Council. And Norwalk-La Mirada Council is one of, and forgive me, Emmy and Marcy, 18 councils that we have in the 33rd District, 17? Okay, 18, pretty good, okay. And then we also do have some out-of-council units, quite a bit actually right now. And those are units where they don't have a council. So they report directly to the 33rd District. For one reason or another, we've got a couple little small ones and a couple other groups, but that's how that works. There's someone to help right on up. We're going to go a little bit more into some of these categories. So what is pass through? That is the income and expenses not belonging to the unit, which we've talked about, the membership per capita dues. Founders Day free will offerings is also part of that pass through. That's not something that you retain, you pass that on up. And then what that does is there's a whole little information about what Founders Day is. It is part of how we celebrate the start of PTA and the three ladies that began it. A lot of those funds go toward training and support and whatnot, so that way we can keep helping future leaders learn how to do the PTA job the PTA way. What is not passed through? That's your income expenses owed to a fundraising or a book fair company. I do miss working book fair. That was one of my favorite things in elementary schools. Does your district have a fee, out of council fee? Does your council have a fee? I actually hail from the Long Beach Council. I'm a past president there, and every unit paid a council fee. And that's part of that, because we don't collect direct memberships. Those are things that help us run to be there as a support. So make sure if your council has a fee, and you'll see that in your bylaws, you're making sure that's part of your budget and you're paying that every year. Has anyone had the school ask you to collect monies for other groups or for the school itself? So does the school run, I don't know, something like a fifth grade teacher's going, hey, I'm going to start collecting this. Can we have you deposit the money and write a check to the company to buy this fundraiser, this fifth grade t-shirt thing? But it's not a PTA program. We're not doing that. As it says right there, that is commingling of funds, and that is laundering, essentially, because it's not money that belongs to you. It's going to be counted on your income, and which might change your taxes. So don't do that, please. If you have questions or someone's trying to pressure you into that, just reach out to council or to district and we can help you out with that. What's the difference between a program and a fundraiser? These are some really good questions of what's the goal? Are we wanting to raise money? Are we wanting to provide a community benefit? Some programs might have some income that go with it. Are we running like a really great program? As an example would be our Reflections program. That's not anything that we're collecting money for, but it does take money to run the program. You need to buy awards, you need to buy certificates, you might need to pay for judges if you can't get them to volunteer. There's going to be a lot of time going through that. You might want to have a celebration. So that's not something that you're charging money for, but it's definitely something that you want to run for your community. So to kind of go back to that 3-to-1 rule, is you want to have these programs going on, but only trying to do maybe 1 or 2 fundraisers, so that way it can pay for all of that. Some of these other budget line items, what else is acceptable? Officer training, like today, but today's free. There is convention. Convention does cost money. It is an away convention this year, and a lot of times it'll be close one year and away another year. Like next year we'll be in Ontario. This year it's up in Fresno, so there is fees. You're going to have a lot of travel fees to get up there. There's also district officer training. I know we held a training in August over the summertime. There is going to be a diversity, equity, and inclusion training coming up as well, a wonderful event that's going to be happening. That is also acceptable PTA expenses. You're going to have some operating expenses. Do you need to mail your tax filings in? Do you have to make copies for a meeting? Insurance, like we talked about, the workers' comp insurance, if there's a surcharge you need to pay. Just the annual officer's insurance that everybody gets to pay as well. Do you have bank fees? Do you have to order a new box of checks or a new endorsement stamp for the back of those checks? Are you accepting credit cards, through, say, a Square or a Zephy or a PayPal? There's going to be processing fees, possibly. Zephy is free. That's something that we utilize for events. There's record-keeping materials. You need to have a really good binder to make sure things aren't falling apart. Do you have your ledger? Are you doing things Like we use my PTEZ here at district, and there's an annual fee for that. So all of those kind of operating expenses you need to make sure you're allocating for on your budget. There's donations where people are giving you checks or cash or company matching, all of that. There's also non-cash donations, which would be like an in-kind donation. Did someone drop off 5 cases of water for your active event that's happening for sports day or something? Making sure you're just accounting for all of that and keeping records. What's not accessible? Personal gifts. We do not purchase personal gifts or excessive hospitality with PTA funds. We don't buy flowers and a birthday cake for your PTA president. Though that's not what we do here with PTA. We can do that on a little side or have a little sunshine fund, but not through the PTA books. There's recommended budget line items you can see on the CAPTA website there under the toolkit. The toolkit is a wonderful thing to have a little bookmark category in your PTA folder on your desktop. That's something I have on the ready there as well as on my phone, so I can just look things up very, very quickly or do some good searching. Back up to the excessive hospitality. I want to say, if I remember correctly, and Emmy, Marcy, correct me if I'm wrong, it should not be more than 5% of your budget, which means you're wanting to, you don't host a teacher luncheon every single month, but teacher appreciation week, teacher staff appreciation week is part of that. You kind of go through there, but really being mindful of what the expenses are going to be. Little bit more about membership. So there's kind of a few different ways you're collecting them. The totem, totem is that California state. I want to say we started that, was it maybe 10 years ago? I think it's been a really long time. I think like 10 or 11 years ago. I remember the first year it came out, they had kind of this little caveat thing at convention, and you got to come and kind of play around with it before it went live. And it was really neat to kind of see it from the ground up. And it's been a really great tool to use because it does all the splitting for you. And all you do is collect the membership. You don't have to send it up per capita. You don't have to send it up through the manual memberships, as we talked about before. That's when you're, at your back to school night and you have your PTA table set up and your PTA envelopes, and someone's coming up and writing you a check, or they're charging it if you have that ability in your unit, or they're handing you the cash for that membership and you're handing them a membership card and saying, thank you for joining us and believing in what we're doing today. You're wanting to make sure that on your budget, as that's going in, you're separating out that income and expenses through, so it's your money, and then you don't have to separate. It's like your total dollar amount. And I'm so far removed. I'm so sorry. I don't know what that exact amount is. That goes back up and through whatever your council is, but it goes through there. So this is a really good little sheet here too. Is your portion of dues belonging to the unit. It goes from manual memberships, cash and check, and then from totem. So you should have 2 lines on there. So that way kind of month to month what you're getting. Totem is really, really popular over the summertime, start of the first year. Totem is huge in, that September, October, November, as you're hosting your first fundraisers, as you're hosting your first association meetings. The back to school nights, all the grandmas coming out and joining up, and you're going through there, and then it kind of tapers off. And sometimes when you have different campaigns and whatnot, you get a little bit more going on. Just make sure that you're keeping those funds not belonging to the unit as the income and the expenses. You're keeping those things separate and making sure you're getting things paid. They should be matching on a budget to actual report, because what comes in, it splits up and then it goes right back out. So this is just a little bit more information going through there. I think some of this might be repeated or I've jumped ahead and talked to it. Those two line items should be matching monthly on your income and your expenses. Back it out. Every single month, make that a goal to be able to write that check and pass that money right on through. You don't want to get stuck at the end of the year and the financial review comes up and they're like, well, you missed a few memberships here. We want to make sure that we're getting those done appropriately. Totem, if you're not on Totem, that's one thing I'm not sure about all of you. But just for your information, every member who pays that way does pay $1 convenience fee to sign up to use that service. It's not something that you can advertise that there's a convenience fee, but it's not paid by the PTA. It's paid by the person choosing to pay via Totem. As we've said many times, it does automatically send that money right through. You don't have to send anything up through channels for Totem membership. So just remember that. But you can be using Totem as well for membership lists. So if your membership person decides, I'm going to input all of our members, everyone who gave us their information, their email, their name, grade level, if you have little contests back and forth, or teachers, that sort of thing. You can still create and add in manual memberships on Totem. That way they can get an electronic membership card. But you just have to remember that if you're manually setting that in, you're still sending that check up through channels. You're sending those membership monies where they need to go. That is something on a monthly that as district, we are having to send out bills for manual memberships that have been entered in, but folks haven't sent their money in to pay for those manual memberships. So just make sure end of the month, you're keeping track, you're sending those up. Some other information on Totem donations. Totem does collect a 5% fee if people are donating that way. So again, if you need to account for that in your budget and in your accounting on your sides there for the income and what that fee expense is going to be. And there's an example of that on the right-hand side. It's kind of straight dollar amount examples there. If you're processing credit card payments, you want to make sure you're utilizing a platform that's built for business. So that's going to be Zeffy, business or nonprofit. Zeffy, Square, PayPal. We've done things through Wix as well. We don't use, what are some of the ones we don't use Venmo. Venmo is person to person. It's not business to business, person to business. Zelle is also part of that as well, for doing certain things. Your income, you want to make sure you're reporting that gross amount, and just like we've talked about before, the credit card processing fee is there as well. You must account for the entire amount of that sale or donation offset by the expense. So there's always that double line that goes in when you're using the credit cards. So there's a little example there. So sale or donation of $100, we're crediting that income budget line item with $100 and report the income of $100, but there's a $15 fee. That's really excessive. So hopefully that's not what it is. On that $100 transaction, and that is going to be credited to the credit card expense line item that you have. And when you move your money from your credit card processing company to your bank, it's $85. That's your net, right? That's how much is actually going into your bank account, but you got to account for all of that. Here's a little sample budget that this is provided by state PTA. It's a little old budget there, 2023 to 2024. You can kind of follow that along, starting on that left-hand side of the cash balance forward. So that's how much money that this unit brought in and is starting the year. There's 15,000 in donations. There's some Totem donations in there. There's membership dues of the unit portion only, if you can see that under the blue there. and then membership dues from Totem. So see how those are two different separate. So the membership dues, the 26-25 example would be all the manual memberships that they're expecting. The fundraisers, so they expect to earn $1,000, and then a bake sale and dining for dollars. They do the Scholastic Book Fair, so much fun. So that's how much they expect to do all of that. And then they've got receipts not belonging to the association. So again, that's that membership pass through from their manual memberships that they received. They had somebody donated $50 for a free will offering, and those are going to be passed through to council and then up to district. Some of your expenses, they're, kind of allocating for $50 in bank charges. That hopefully will be a zero, but you do need to allocate because sometimes checks bounce or something happens. There's an NSF fee, that sort of thing. So we want to make sure we're covering that. Your insurance is going to be, it changes year to year. But we always hear about what that dollar amount is over the summertime, and we communicate that out so you can update your budget. I actually don't remember what the unit cost was this year, but I know everybody went up, or right on up, district went up, council went up, and units went up. Workers' comp, that would be a little surcharge if needed, if you hire people from your PTA. Any payment processing fees. So this unit uses PayPal, so they're expecting to pay $50 in fees. Totem donation fees as well. So they kind of have an idea of what they got maybe last year, and so they're allocating for that. They're paying $100 to have their website domain. And then these folks have really invested in training in CAPTA convention, so they've allocated $3,000 for that. So that's probably a good 2 people who would be able to go to convention for that amount. Locally, probably. It might be a little bit more if you have to fly up north. Officer expenses. Do we need to get binders for the treasurer's books? Do we need to, get what's it called? Name tags for our officers, so that way we can be identified when we're hosting events. Just kind of going through all of that. The expenses not belonging to the association. Again, that's the membership from your manual membership pass through. Then it looks like they will have about $5,000 carry over, a little bit of unallocated reserves, and they're ready to go for the year. Utilize the tools that we have access to on our website, on our district website, on the California State PTA website. There's a lot of good forms. There's sample budgets. There's sample things. There's so many great tools out there. Going through. All right. So you're monitoring this budget. It is not only the treasurer's responsibility, but it really is the executive board's total responsibility. So when you're having your meetings, I know for myself, I keep on the ready a budget to actual ready on my computer so I can pull it up as needed at every meeting. I'm not sure if Marcy's aware of that, but I do keep that ready to go in case someone asks, well, what is my budget for this event? How much did we actually spend on that event we held in November? What's going on with that? You should know what is happening with your books all year long, or at least be able to pull it up and share that information. Did you budget appropriately as events have passed on? Are we within our budget? Did we really go over and we really missed the bar there? Do we need to maybe have a little meeting and revisit and maybe change some things up for the springtime so we can make sure that we balance our budget and not spend more than what we're bringing in, unless that's part of it is, you're trying to spend down some of the excess income that you've had. You always want to make sure that the appropriate motions are being made if you do need to revise your budget. Now GA, that would be like your general association. Did they approve? Did they approve this thing? Can we change your plans? Budget, of course you can. Budgets can be changed. It doesn't happen just right away, but you do need to go through that process. Budget's an estimate. It is a living document, is how I've how I was taught how to look at it, it can be changed. That one is not set in stone, but we do want to make sure as events happen, that your figures are accurate. Sometimes things don't go as planned. Sometimes you want to scrap a program. That's okay too. We want to make sure we're keeping current with our income and expenses. That's on your budget to actual report. So you'd have one line, this is what our budget is, and the next line over, front or back, depending on what your accounting program is going to have, this is what we actually spent. You want to always present those adjustments to your association. And with notice budget adjustments, they just require that simple majority vote. So if you came to our September association meeting, we went over the budget and we presented our budget for the year. And some people had some questions on why things had changed or what differences, why was there such a big difference? And so we just explain all that and we move forward. At our next association meeting, I'm going to probably be presenting a budget to actual, just to have an idea of where we're at so far for the year, because as treasurer, it is my responsibility to share that with our association and to share that with our board. Because again, nothing is secret. It is very transparent. It's very open. I am responsible for keeping that, as well as, the other financial officers and my president. But we need to make sure books are open to our membership. So if anyone needs to see something, I'm happy to show. And throat's getting a little dry. Hold on. So treasurer reports, they are done every single month. Your board is meeting every single month. And again, association meetings can be every month, every other month, every quarter, depends on what you have in your bylaws. You need to be presenting information to your board, to your association, with beginning and ending balances on every bank account, every credit card processing account. Ours go a little long. We have, I want to say, 6 accounts that I report on every month. You want to make sure things are balanced. Everything was entered appropriately. You're ratifying any checks that have been written, the authorized online payments, you're getting those cleared at the end of the month. Because again, everything should be clear and open. This is how much we took in. This is how much we sent out. And this is what we've ended up for the end of the month. So this is a rough example of a treasurer's report. And so you actually, as treasurer, you read this into the minutes. It can take a little bit long. So as an example, what I'll do is you literally read it through, and then your secretary records it all. And that way it's presented up as minutes in the next association meeting or the next board meeting. So you'd say, as an example, in our checking account, we had a starting balance on July 13, 2024 of $3,000. Total income was $2,000. Total disbursements for the month and EFTs, your electronic funds transfer, was $1,000. And the balance on hand on August 15th was $4,000. And then I usually ask if there's any questions, or if someone goes, what's happening, whatever, we answer those questions. And then we file this report for our financial review. And then we're going to move on to the next one. And so you just keep going through to get those numbers and dates entered into those minutes. That always review your minutes to make sure the secretary recorded the balances and motions appropriately as well. So that's something I always do, is I'll look back through, I'll look at the minutes that our secretary typed in, make sure that it actually matches what the report is that I gave. Because we want to make sure there aren't any of the typos. And then if there are, you let your secretary know, and they'll use a red pen and get them corrected, so it's correct for the financial review. Your budget to actual report, that they use that as the tool to monitor that budget, to not overspend. You can request budget adjustments as things are changing. present the budget to actual at least quarterly. Do not do the net income. You're reporting your income and expenses separately. So it's not, it's, how do we do this example? So let's say book fair. So we're going to pay out this $5,000 for the book fair, but we took in $6,000. So your report isn't going to be book fair, we earned 1,000. You're reporting both that income and expenses separately. Annual financial reports. So we do this at the end of the fiscal year. If you're a PTA Easy or PT Easy user, it actually is super simple because there's a report that's just calls a financial. Oh goodness, I'm losing my, it's a financial report, and we print that, and there it is. This bottom bullet point is outdated already this year. We are no longer using document management in my PTEZ. It is Future Fund, which has been all over. And I hope you folks have had the opportunity to attend one of the training sessions that CAPTA has had for units. It's just another tool that we get to use at no cost. That's what part of that membership goes toward up to state, as it pays for some of these wonderful things. So you'll get more information about that as we continue to roll this out over the rest of this year and next year. When you report to the association, first association meeting of the year, you're going to be going over all of these things here. You're getting your budget approved. You're getting your fundraisers and programs approved that the board has decided on. You're sharing that year-end financial review, the annual financial report. All of that stuff is all right there. You're also wanting to make sure you're doing that ratification of your checks and releasing of funds for the next cycle until the next approval times come in. So association, you're always looking forward and what's happening and what do I need to look forward to, or what am I expecting to spend in the next month or two? Do I need to get approvals? Which I just talked about all of that. Here we go. Let's get that one on. Your executive board, you should also, same thing, be talking to them. You're doing your treasurer's reports. These are the expenses. These are the bills that I've been presented with. Do we need to update some things? Like we can actually, our workers' comp, we had expected to pay, I want to say $500 or $600 more than what our actual surcharge was this year. So that's going to be something I'm going to adjust for our budget moving forward. I get to lower that amount because our expense was a whole lot lower, which was great. So this is a great little caveat here, kind of popping in. What to report into who? So your executive board, that's your every single monthly meeting. That's everyone who's been elected, standing chair people, things that can kind of carry on. And then the association is that nice general meeting. Your treasurer's report is presented every meeting at these ones. You're going to be ratifying checks and those payments at every single meeting. Even if there's been nothing, you still have to go through. The budget to actual, again, like I mentioned, I keep it handy and ready. Sometimes we don't go over it or people don't ask, but I always have it ready at every meeting. And then the association, at least quarterly, especially if you're meeting every month, you don't have to do that one every month with your association. You're going to be presenting any expenses. So any bills that you've been received, any bills that you've been presented with, any expenses that you're expecting, you're wanting to make sure you're getting those things taken care of. And then at the association meeting is where you ask to release funds for those upcoming activities that are coming in. Put back here. So income. We do have you know, for your units, and when you keep a cash box, that way when you're at events, you have that going through. We do not keep a petty cash till. There's always 2 people to count. That's your minimum. 3 people are on that cash verification form. You want to make sure that things are getting deposited ASAP. So if you're having an event, if it's possible, you do that deposit at the same event. The end of the evening, if it's not, next morning, next day. You want to keep that paper trail going. This form is also on there, signed by all the people who counted that money. You can create a customized form. I know for myself, I just always use the one that CAPTA had because it's so easy. Everything's there. You don't need to create your own. Everyone, I know when I did it too, I would take a picture of it to make sure that, what I signed, that's there. And then on the next treasurer's report, when I went to the next meeting, I always verified that that was the amount that actually got deposited for that event. It helps it's keeping yourself honest. It's keeping the treasurer honest. It's keeping everybody honest, and it's all there. This is the process for doing some expenses. Your budget was approved, your plans were presented and then authorized at a meeting. It's in the minutes, and then you can start spending that money. This chart is one of my favorites. I don't know who created it, but it is fabulous. This is a good one if you have any questions going through. So, was it approved in the budget? It was not. Oh my goodness. So you it helps you kind of go through of, can I spend this money? Right? Just do a little pause on that so you can kind of look through all of that for yourself. This would be a really good one, I want to say, on just a piece of paper too, to keep in your treasurer's binder. It's a good little snapshot.
I don't know what I should do tomorrow. Should I cancel the job for tomorrow? I have.
Oh, someone's not muted. If you could mute. Thank you. All right, payment authorization and reimbursements. There's a few different forms that can be used depending on the type of reimbursement or payment or advance that is happening. Reimbursements should be done with, no reimbursement should be done without paperwork and receipts. Every expenditure, you need to have a receipt or an invoice if it's an invoiceable things. You do not reimburse from the cash box. Say you're collecting your membership and people have, given you a whole bunch of cash and membership. Someone on your board can't go, oh my gosh, I just, I bought the waters for the day. Can you just give me some money out of that? It's not how we do things in PTA. We've got to do this nice. It's a little long, but it keeps everybody honest and keeps the paperwork intact. Advances are allowed. Make sure guidelines and expectations are outlined before an advance is given. That shouldn't be on the regular, but can definitely be done. Motions, treasurer makes a motion but doesn't ask for the vote. That's your president who does that, or whoever's running that meeting. Treasurer may move to authorize expenses, for example, paying the bills, ratify checks and elect funds transfers, or make budget adjustments. You also need to ratify any voided checks. And kind of looking in that, our favorite thing that cracks me up, because it took me probably about 10 years to stop doing, I want to make a motion to do this. You start with, I move to ratify checks 1, 2, 3 through 1, 2, 4. And going on through there. Motions are a request for action, and without a motion, you shouldn't write a check. If there's no second to your motion, it dies right there. And if there is no vote, there is no approval. So make sure that discussion ends with a vote. And this, your presidents do have received guidance on how to do that, and some examples, and kind of walk through. Motion documents the transactions. So if you've got something coming up and you're going to ask for some changes to your budget, you could say, hey, Marcy, I'm going to be putting this on our agenda today, and part of my treasurer's report, I've got to do some changes to my budget. This is the motion I'm going to be making, so she knows what's coming. That's really good. And then on the bottom there, you can see that 8 steps to making a motion, again, from our lovely toolkit that CAPTA has provided. When you write a check, the payee amount, you don't ever pre-sign checks. You never make it payable to cash. Always has to be payable to a person. Be careful when mailing, make sure things are sealed, you're stamped appropriately, addressed appropriately. And right there, use indelible black gel ink pens. Blue can work too, but make sure you're using, don't use a ballpoint pen, don't use a felt tip pen. Those can be washed. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Catch Me If You Can, but he was famous for washing a bunch of checks. And that's actually what happened to us is I made that mistake and it was over the summer and I had written with a pen I shouldn't have used and have since changed. And now I have a Sharpie gel pen that I use that cannot be taken off and it bleeds right into the check itself. Be careful. Again, just back to that annual insurance premium. If you haven't gotten that taken care of, please let us know. We can help. But really, you just need to contact AIM. They're super responsive and can help you with that. That is an outdated slide. I apologize. It was January 4th and the fee was $20 or $50 this year. Again, workers' comp is happening right now. If you have not completed that, please do that in the next day or two. Get that done. And again, reach out if you have any questions. We can help you get through that. You have to list all the paid independent contractor vendors on that workers' comp form. So you can look back through and this is a calendar, almost a calendar year. You want to make sure you're looking back at things, and this is going to cover folks from your last fiscal year, but in the calendar year. Taxes, I'm just going to touch on this briefly because I know we're kind of getting to our time at 7:30. We have these annual federal and state informational returns. You have your IRS returns, your 990, 990 Easy, or 990N. And a lot of those, it just depends on what your income is. And so there's different ones if you're under, and again, Emmy, Marcy, help me out here. I want to say if it's your under 50,000 income, you can do a postcard. And then if it's above that, it's a little bit longer of a form. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I appreciate the tag team there. California Franchise Task Board, that's your 199N or your 199. Again, I want to say that's just depending on what your income is. The California Attorneys General Registry of Charities and Fundraisers, they changed that name like a year or two ago. That's your RRF1. That has to be filed every year as well. And if your unit happens to be incorporated, which I'm not sure if any of yours are, there's that thing as well. The SI 100, that's it, every 2 years. The districts usually are, councils usually are. It's unusual for units to be incorporated, and that you would know that through your previous tax filings, and it also would be in your bylaws. Tax filing, do you need a tax professional? Not necessarily. I do know there are a lot of units that do, and that's usually when their income is, they have a lot of income going through. So it just really is going to depend on your average and what's going on. On the CAPTA website as well, there is a great tax filing support center. We have a wonderful tax and government filing help as well. And then your treasurer should be able to help you through your counsel as well. All PTAs must file the RF1 annually. Get those things taken care of and in the appropriate time. They can be filed online if the status is current. We're here to help. Please ask for help. I'm going to skip over the incorporated information. PTA Easy, or excuse me, PT Easy. It used to be PTA Easy when I first started using it, so forgive that little faux pas there. My PT Easy was designed by PTA for PTA. You can also use that. They have the tax help inside there as well for a fee, but it is something that you can do. Treasurer's resources on the leaders website, and that leaders website is the CAPTA, CAPTA.org. Through the toolkit, there's the financial section, the insurance guide and vendor requirements, tax filing support, all kinds of forms you can print to have just in your PTA room or in your on the ready. I know when I go to in-person events, I always keep some forms with me just so I've got them ready to go. I'm not going to go over a lot of those right there. NSF checks, hopefully you don't see a lot of those. That would be, say, if someone wrote you a check, it bounced, and so you were assessed a fee. You can collect that fee from them as well. There's an update on the credit and debit cards. They've given the caveat for deposit only ATM cards are okay. Please make sure you're following the same kind of procedures and really reading on the guidelines of how to do that if that's something that you're wanting to do. You also need to make sure that we're getting approvals from your association to move forward if there's changes. And just a reminder, no person-to-person apps, so we're not Venmoing somebody. PTA does not do Venmo. Non-cash contributions, which are also referred to as in-kind donations. Just keep track of that as well. Non-cash contributions are reported on tax filings, so have that going. Donor requests, PTA for the W-9. There's a good little thing, again, that leader's website. I don't know if everyone's been to that yet, but we can kind of show you some of that when I'm done with this slideshow here. Preparing for the financial review, that's kind of where we're at right now, because your mid-year financial review should be taking place, if it hasn't already, in the next cycle. I know for myself, I'm finishing looking through to make sure I've got everything printed out that I need and everything's hole punched in my through-ring binder. And I'm going to be getting my binder, my treasurer's books and records to our financial reviewer at the end of this week. So she can do our review to keep track and make sure if I'm missing something, I can correct it and get things taken care of. That way, this next 6 months, I do things the way that they should be done. Little mistakes happen. I want you to remember that a financial review is just that. It's a review. Let's look to make sure that the policies and practices that we're doing is right, and that we're, making sure we're printing out the appropriate things and we're getting the right signatures, and we've got the 2 signatures on our checks to make sure we're keeping things going. There is a records retention and destruction policy for records. This is kind of a fun thing, especially if your unit's been around a long time and there's folders and binders. You can go through and start going through some of this stuff. I know Marcy and I were talking about doing that at the district office. We've got some old records we can start moving through. Going through there. Oh, and that's the end of our slideshow. Yay.
Eric, I have a couple of questions for you.
Awesome.
Here's the first one. What is considered a plan? Is an approval for releasing the funds considered a green light to spend the money for the program, etc., since the proposed expense is itemized in the budget? Thanks.
Okay, so releasing funds. So I can give an example of trying to think about it. So we've got, and please jump in, so you're going to ask, so looking forward, I'm just trying to get out of my district hat and put a unit hat on. Okay, so we have an event coming up, budgeted, say we've got a $5,000 budget for that event. We want to release those funds for that event. And then that's when you can start doing those expenses. So we need to pick up paper goods for this event. We need to buy this kind of thing. And so the next meeting, you're coming back with those receipts and getting to your treasurer and getting that reimbursement and then asking to ratify. Does that make sense?
You can spend the money. What I would suggest and always remember is it's always good for your committees, if they're planning events, to have a plan and a budget in place for how they're going to spend those funds ahead of time, that the board has already looked at and seen and approved. That would be my suggestion to you, or else you get random receipts that you don't know what they're for, if they were used for that event. So at 33rd District, we have a budget, we have a event planning form, and that's all included in that when we do events. So I hope that helps. There is another question.
Okay.
Okay. And then I have a couple that I'll answer. What about cash that we use for weekly, semi-daily snack sales? Are we supposed to deposit and withdraw it every week? It's down towards the bottom.
Snack sales. That's so the PT, I'm just so I understand, PTA is running like a,
Christine, can you give us
that's
some more details on
interesting.
that?
Yeah. Do you want to come on camera and chat for a sec?
Yeah, we have snack sales that we do. Um, it's not consistent, but we do sometimes like maybe 2 days a week. We have snack sales that we run as a way like it's just like an ongoing fundraiser, I guess. Uh,
Okay.
so, we're because of how our PTA is like we're kind of short-staffed all the time. We don't really have it all the time. Um,
Mhm.
we don't have necessarily a regular day that we do the snack sale, but we just bring it out there when people are available.
So every day that you bring money in, that money needs to be counted and deposited. And then to purchase snacks, either someone buys them and they're reimbursed, or they ask for a cash advance for them or a check that we pay the vendor directly with. Those are your ways to do that because the money coming in and money going out all needs to be accounted for. So it
Mhm.
does need to be counted and deposited every day. Well, every day that the
Right, well, we do count it. I mean, it's counted every day that we have the sales. I'm just asking, like, what do you, this doesn't sound like something that you guys normally do, but
No. Yeah.
overkill
Is
if it
this
was.
some, is this maybe something similar to like in high school you have Friday night snack bars, for example, and you have startup cash that you've already taken out. Um, and then at the end of the evening, you count up your cash, all your income, and then you fill out the proper forms, and then you give it to your treasurer for prompt deposit, right? But I think part of your question was also, can you carry over that change cash, or do you have to go deposit it and take it out each time? Did I misunderstand?
Yes, that's exactly it.
So can they keep that startup cash on hand? Like if you start up with 100 in cash in certain denominations, can they keep that in their cash box?
actually,
Phil.
yes, if everything else is deposited, as long as because that's already accounted for, because it's already accounted as petty cash, yeah, as change that's been taken out of your bank account and startup cash that's been taken out of your bank account. So if you just keep that amount,
Okay.
anything over that amount needs to be deposited.
I would also recommend some sort of accounting form that goes into the cash box, though, where you keep the change cash, like something where two people can sign that they're verifying this amount of money is going into an envelope for the treasurer to deposit from this particular night, and this amount of money in these denominations is being kept in the change box for the next day. That way, there's a recording of who counted the money and what's being left for the startup change cash for the next day. That way there's a trail, yeah? And the other thing is, I don't think it's a good idea to be taking that money home. Is there a safe place on campus where they can leave that change cash?
For us, I mean, not really. Like, there's a place that we could, but other people have access to it, so I don't know.
So where is that cash being kept when it's not being used?
Usually the treasurer holds on to it, and we know that the treasurer has it, and we know how much it is.
Okay. So you don't have a locked safe at the school
No,
on campus? So that might be something you might want to look into too as a PTA safe
we can look into that. We actually like a closet at the school.
or something. Yeah, something locked, that that only PTA has access to.
So we can look
Because
into.
really, if like for me personally, I wouldn't want to be liable for even that little amount because if it gets stolen, then
Yeah, no, this is
yeah,
this is
okay.
no, but that the room that we have is also like a lot of people can access it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It
So like a safe in the room, is that something that
if a safe in the room, we can
yeah.
ask.
I know like at the elementary school that my kids went to, we had our PTA safe was actually in the office, but it was like ground in. They like got permission and like actually drilled it into the floor so it couldn't be like lifted and someone walk away with the safe.
So either if your school has a
But yeah,
safe
there's,
or PTAs can invest money into a safe that can be put somewhere to hold things over the weekend.
yeah,
Um, I
protect.
will say that I do not like taking home money from events. I know it happens sometimes because it's over a weekend or, it's a Saturday event. But it makes me nervous. So anything that can help you and your people not feel as nervous, go ahead and do. Just look into it. And it may not be in the cards for this year, but it may be something you can look into in the future if you've got plans to do it.
That's good. Well, on to that note, if like something happens to the money, if it's in the safe, if it's at the school and something happens to the money, is that still it's PTA liable? Is that covered by insurance or like how?
Usually will be covered by insurance depending on what the circumstances are. I'm going to say this one thing that I've learned about our insurance vendor is a few years new now, maybe like 3 years we've had AIM. One of the things that they will not cover theft if your the officers of your board have not been to training. It's part of their rules. So I'm going to say make sure your boards go to training because if there's any theft involved at a
Mhm.
school site or there's embezzlement, as an insurance company, they will not cover it if your officers have not been to training.
So would that be like the training at the beginning of the school year? Is that the one that you're talking about?
Any training during the
Even
year.
even this training,
Today's
and I would go
training.
Uh-huh.
further, is even documented in the minutes.
Yep.
Following
That's right.
members of our financial team attended 33rd District PTA's financial training on this date and list the names of your financial officers and make sure it's recorded in your minutes.
That's a good caveat, Emmy. I like that. There's a message or a question in the chat. Can PTA purchase a safe for PTA money that we cannot deposit on evening events? Yes. So that's definitely something, again, you're going to need to price that out, take a look at it, get it approved at board, get it approved at association, and, maybe have a couple different companies that you go through or, a couple different things that you look at, or, um, it can be a small safe too, but you want to make sure that it's secure as well. But yeah, so that's a really good question. Awesome.
It's
Couple
okay.
more questions I saw
Erica,
earlier.
oh,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
It's
Emmy.
yeah,
okay.
there was a question earlier, if we have a sample budget to actual.
Oh, you know what? I'll just pull up ours. How about that?
While
And
Erica's
so,
looking for that, I can talk about gift cards. So we do not suggest that you use gift cards for anything. There's two reasons. One is that we don't do personal gifts for people. So secretaries, a child, even if it's an award. And secondly, it's because there could be tax implications for the person receiving the gift card. It's considered taxable funds, so they would have to report that as taxable income. So those are the two reasons we kind of shy away from gift cards. You can do them. CAPTA has said you can do them, but they have to be nominal. And by nominal, they mean $10 or less. But it is still taxable income. And because we are an organization that does not have, we don't encourage private gain of any one person, we steer away from gift cards. So as a district, we kind of say, and our advice is no gift cards in general. And then another question I know was about Founders Day. So Founders Day is a national event. It is mostly put on by units, councils, districts, and state. And we take a free will offering. We ask if people want to donate to it. Some councils do it, some units do it, some don't. The money that is collected from that would be submitted through channels. So if you're a unit, you would submit it to the council would submit it to district, and district would submit it to state. And what state does with those funds is that's how they're able to offer scholarships to seniors or scholarships to people wanting to go to convention to apply for scholarships. So that's what the free will offering is for. So if you have any more questions, let me know.
awesome. All right, I've got our budget to actual ready. I'm going to screen share here again. So again, we utilize PTEZ and printing up of the form. This is just a PDF of it. So it shows what our starting balance was. I just did it for current to today, the January 28th. we have everything kind of separated out. We have our administration information there, and you can see the first column is our actual balances and what we budgeted for the year. So you can see we went over just a little bit, 249 in our income. We got a little bit more than we were expecting. Going from there, membership is not quite there. We do have a lot of units. Remember how I was saying those manual memberships, we've got a lot of memberships we're still expecting to come in. We've got one little fundraiser that we kind of do. These are our programs that we have going. So again, that middle column is what we expect to earn. And you can kind of see the last event we just did was our Presidents and Administrators Conference. So you can see that kind of came in a little bit over. Our trainings were a little under. And we have our non-unit income. So again, this is our transitory, the membership dues in and out for state and national. We have our administration on our expenses kind of budgeted out. We kind of separate it. Again, we're districts, so we've got a little bit more admin, I think, a lot of times than units. We've got our programs that are going on. We have everything just kind of listed out through here. Our convention expenses we've got going, and then our expenses to send those transitory monies up. Kind of gives our net gains and losses. And so again, I've got a little bit of working I'm going to do, just kind of showing where we're at the last time, and we're going for there. So we'll be doing some changes coming up for our next association meeting.
Okay, there's another question. Can a program be specifically for one grade?
So this is going to be one of those that at least, okay, and again, I'm pulling a lot from the experience that I've had, and all the trainings I've had. If you do something for one grade, you really should be doing it for all of them. Like an example would be field trips. You want it to be, because when we're making money and when you're taking in fundraisers, you're doing it, it's to benefit the whole population of your group, right? We don't want to single out first grade, because then what if a second grade parent comes, well, why are you spending that money on them but nothing on second grade?
So if you're doing a field trip for
No.
kindergarten, you don't
Yeah.
necessarily have to do a field trip for first grade, but maybe they have different needs with a similar
Yeah.
monetary amount. So we want to try to keep that equal.
Yeah.
It's a variation on that question.
Yeah.
I have a similar question for fifth grade activities. And if we can have one specific fundraiser, a dine out, be specific to cover fifth grade activities.
Or emails of budget the activity. That's a great question too.
Can I chime in? I'm the one with the question. I'm
Sure.
sorry.
Sure.
Okay. So we haven't, in our school, fifth grade is the graduating class, right? So they're promoting. And then we've always had, well, not always, we just kind of recently became we just formed the RPTA again after going through some changes, but we've designated like a budgeted amount for fifth grade activities, such as like a fifth grade dance. And for example, we'll cover for like maybe the major stuff, like maybe a photo booth or DJ, but then parents contribute for the food, snacks, whatnot. But then there's also now thoughts of having like an offsite event. Teachers, fifth grade teachers brought up like, can PTA support? Like we mentioned, we have a budget, for example, up to a certain amount, like $500 designated for activities. But could we have, like, I've heard like every time we have a dine out, we can designate what the need is. So could we have a specific dine out to help fund for some of those like events? Or do we need to like ratify, like have an updated budgeted amount that everyone agrees on and votes on to up the budget for this year? Or can we, that's kind of where we're at. It's like a gray area. Because I mean, and we do have, and sorry, to one more thing, and to go back to your field trip, we do actually have that a designated amount for every single teacher, every single grade to like use, for example, $100 per grade to either for a field trip or their needs for their classroom. That's fair, and that's across the board. So we do have that already, and teachers are very happy about that. They decide how they want to use those funds, and that's separate. So the fifth grade is just kind of like a unique thing because it's for our outgoing class.
So recommend that you amend your budget rather than designate certain funds for things,
Okay,
fundraisers for things.
yes.
Because let's say you planned on this fundraiser was only going to bring in $500, but it brought in $2,000.
Right.
All those monies that were collected saying that it was going to be used for that event has to be used for that event. And if it's not, it has to be returned.
Oh, got it. Okay, so it's better to just up the budget, and then if we end up going above our goal, that's just going back to the general fund to be used for other programs, whatnot.
Perfect.
Okay,
You
so
got
that's
it.
what we'll do. We're having a meeting in a week or so, so I wanted to make sure I got that in and ratified in time for those events that are happening towards the end of the school year.
Great
Awesome.
question, but
Okay,
that's a
thank
perfect
you.
answer.
I appreciate
And I
it.
love
Thank you.
you're looking forward to that.
Oh, I'm always a planner,
really
so I try
helps.
to. Yes, thank
Yeah.
you.
Good. Awesome. All right, we're just about 8 o'clock.
Any more questions? I know that Monica wants to stay on for a quick second.
And I'm just going to caveat this too. After you leave this evening, you might have questions that pop up. Please feel free to reach out, and we can help either answer those questions or direct where to go to find some answers. I know usually after a meeting, after I've slept on, I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have asked this, or this situation pops up. So always know that we're here, and you can always reach out anytime. Okay. Thank you for taking the time out to be here. We appreciate it.